2018, man. Here we go.
These are shocking and shameful comments from the President of the United States. I'm sorry, but there's no other word one can use but racist. You cannot dismiss entire countries and continents as shitholes.
It's Friday, January 12th, 2018. Happy New Year, folks! Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Today's show, Donald Trump introduces shitholes into the presidential lexicon. That's gone well. Even the notorious Frank Luntz, you know, that Republican pollster dude, he's piling on saying on Twitter, quote, 43% of immigrants from shithole African countries have a bachelor's degree or higher compared to 33% of the overall American population. Nigerian-Americans, for instance, have a median household income well above the American average. It's quite an accomplishment, you know, getting that kind of education when you live in a hut. Trump now seems to be locking himself into his TV room and staying in his jammies for the rest of his presidency. Cancels a trip to the UK. Sure, it's about the embassy. Yeah, bad embassy. Or is it because of Obama? It's Obama's fault. Or maybe it's about the hundreds of thousands of protesters that would have greeted him if he had gone. And this week gave us the Dossier drama. Senator Diane Feinstein owns Republicans and releases the transcript of Fusion GPS's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee against the wishes of Grassley and the Republican members. Boom! Didn't expect that from Feinstein, but holy, that was something. The Washington Post and the Partnership for Public Service say that 245 out of the 626 critical executive branch jobs remain without even a nominee. It's Obama's fault. I hate Theresa May. And will it be Oprah or NOprah in 2020? PA Dems hold an event in Delco as part of their Turn PA Blue campaign. And I gotta say, you know, in addition to seeing Leanne Kruger-Branicki and Art Haywood there, Keith Ellison in the house, folks. We're gonna have to start calling him the shadow chair of the Democratic National Committee. Former state senator Tim Soloby resigns from the Wolf administration after stories surface of him slapping a staffer on the back end. Whoop! And the Wolf administration settles a $900,000 sexual harassment incident that occurred in the Department of Revenue between 2011 and 2013. Didn't happen during the Wolf administration, but the payout did. And Dalen Leach, yep, still hanging on. He publishes an op-ed explaining his sexual harassment allegations, and he appears to still be running for office. Okay, Dalen. Good luck with that. What's up with the PA Senate security secrecies, huh? What you hiding there, huh? And Free Will Breweries, their next Sour Sunday, the first of 2018, will be January 28th from 12 to 8. They're also teasing right now the release of Peachy McPeachface, and that's a barrel-aged sour. And when Sean and I were talking on the show, getting going today, Sean says one of his favorites, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Saucony Creek is also getting ready to release an Imperial Coffee Stout from their X-Reserve line. If it's any similar to the ones they've done before, it's going to be fantastic. That promises to be a good one. And Pizza Boy has got sour front side lip slide on tap. I remind everybody, tune into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Normally, I'm out there giving the Resistance Report. This week, I was actually on the Rick Smith's radio show. I was on there on Tuesday night. I was actually out in Rick's international headquarters studio, helping him with some stuff out there this week. And he just got picked up by the Progressive Voices Network this week, right for 2018. So not only has 2017 been a banner year for the move over to Free Speech TV, in addition to his radio show, but now getting picked up by Progressive Voices too as well. Kudos to Rick. If you haven't checked out the Rick Smith Show, just go to ricksmithshow.com and really do check that out and pick up his show on the weekends. You can stream that show live at freespeech.org, and again, that's Saturday at 7 p.m. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. I want to thanks to our 2 newest members, right? These are the official first 2018 Out of the Blocks members. We want to thanks to Emmy for joining at the $10 a month level. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks to our newest $50 a month level. Didn't want it on there, thanks, but thank you for $50 a month there. Right, I'll tell you, that's a way to start 2018, if I ever could say anything about it, which I just did. If you like what you hear, you too can support Pull No Punches Progressive Media. Become a member for Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. Not ready to become a member? No problem. You can make a one-time donation by going to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab. Click Donate, and you'll be good to go. And we have a winner 2018, our 2018 launch membership special. Now through the end of February, you can get your own copy of Steven Singer's new book, Gadfly on the Wall. A public school teacher speaks out on racism and reform by joining at the $10 a month level. So Emmy will be getting that in the mail, along with some really great swag. That's awesome. We're also going to have Steven Singer on as an Out the Coop Extra. I've talked to Steven before the end of 2017, and we'll be kind of arranging some time to bring him aboard and talk about his book, Gadfly on the Wall. You've seen Steven Singer in the pages of Raging Chicken Press too as well. Fantastic writer, fantastic guy. So you can get that. Again, $10 a month, Raging Chicken Press membership. Go to patreon.com, rcpress, patreon.com/rcpress, and you can get your copy of Gadfly on the Wall for joining at the $10 a month level. Sean, welcome to 2018, man.
How's it going?
It's going. It's been
a shithole of a year so far.
Yeah, how's it feel living in this shithole of a nation that we got going on, right? Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, Harrisburg is a war zone. Harrisburg, not Harrisburg. Harrisburg is a war zone, according to our president, the shithole in chief.
Oh, my God. I can't. I just, that blew my mind. I was like, really? Did that?
And not only he didn't say it once, he said it multiple times, too, in the same meeting. So I guess that's what.
No, I never said that. I never used those words. I never swear.
So Dick Durbin came out this morning and said, no, you absolutely did say it. He said it multiple times.
Nice. He said it multiple times, man. That's awesome. I mean, it's not awesome that he said it.
Good on, Dick Durbin, stepping up. I mean, there's, 6 people in the room, 4 or 5 are Republicans, Dick Durbin and his aide. I mean, I'm pretty sure Dick Durbin's not going to be in that office that much anymore in the future.
Well, did you see him? Because he was there for the, he had his little immigration roundtable where he took, where Trump took every position that could be taken on the immigration thing. I think he just wanted the photo op of saying, I'm here, I'm negotiating, see, this is how it goes, guys.
With his excellent deal-making skills that was put on blast earlier in the week with Diane Feinstein and Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that was, Dick Durbin, in that meeting, right, and you see some of the meetings, he just looks like he's exasperated, he's out of energy. He's like, no, that's just not true. It's just not, no, that's not how this goes. No, that's not, no. That's kind of like his whole shtick. I can totally see. So I'm glad to hear that he did come out and basically kind of contradict what the line Trump has been trying to peddle. Yeah, but it was wild watching a bunch of the kind of right wing media come out there too as well and say, yeah, this is good for us. This is good for us. This will be good for our base. Our base is going to be happy, which just kind of underscores that
which is true. I mean, the base is at this point white nationalists and neo-Nazis at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and the people who pull the who are ballot pullers. I mean, they don't, people who don't give a shit who's on the ballot are just going to walk in there and hit anyone with an R next to their name, and that's it.
Yep.
I know we actually had a good conversation about Trump last night on my Twitter account. Someone I made a president implied that it's implied and understood that Trump is a shithole president, And we got into a really good discussion. Like a person, it's always about race. I'm like, no, you're right. It is about race, and that's who his supporters are think. But I mean, he's like, Democrats are going to have to like kowtow to racists in the future. Like we never want to get to that point. I'm like, well, if we ever have to get to that point where the Democratic Party is kowtowing to racists, it's because the Democratic Party decided to leave, that working class behind. Going from that professional intellectual class, leaving the working class for that professional intellectual class. I mean, populism works. And you know what? Populism is a great way to organize and get people motivated. Sure, you're not going to change the racists out there, but you're going to motivate people on your side to vote if you run a populist campaign. Something that Jeremy Corbyn or Bernie Sanders is doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Echo. Exactly what you said. No, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. It's going to be just going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I was checking out. Go ahead. Sorry, you're about to say something.
I was going to say I was working all day yesterday. I had no clue what happened until I come home at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I've been. I'm telling you, I've been. My semester starts. I got to be back to work. A little over a week, and so I've been just doing a lot of prep work. I'm teaching two new classes that I haven't taught before. We launched this brand new major at Kutztown. It's called Social Media Theory and Strategy, right? So I've been part of building that major, and we got two classes that I'm going to be teaching in the spring that are going to be really, I mean, that exactly on social media theory and strategy. Talk about new media story change, and another one on digital rhetorics, and so I've been doing a lot of that kind of prep, and so I kind of come out of this academic hole of kind of prepping for classes, and then say, oh, what's going on in the world? Like, oh my god, right? I didn't
come out of the cave.
Oh my god, I was like, what just happened?
Stare at the sun and go back in.
Oh my god, well, it's funny. I don't know if have you seen any of the responses from like around the world from the shithole comment?
I have seen some. Vicente Fox I've seen, but that's about it.
Yeah, I love Vicente Fox's one, right? Vicente, he comes out and basically says, your mouth is the foulest shithole in the world. With what authority do you proclaim who's welcome in America and who's not? America's greatness is built on diversity, or have you forgotten your immigrant background, Donald? I'm like, Vicente Fox calling Donald Trump's mouth the biggest shithole in the world. That's something, man. I love that.
And you know what? Sorry, I just saw a Tomi Lahren tweet pop across my screen on this.
Oh, I'm sure that's enlightening.
If they aren't shithole countries, why don't their citizens stay there? Let's be honest. Call it like it is.
Well, there you go. Double down, man. That's the playbook right there. Double down.
But, again, oh man, that just ruined my train of thought. I'm like the hamster. I'm just like squirrel.
Well, it is. We brought a little out of practice last week, and I want to apologize to everybody. I kept on meaning to follow up out last week. We had the weather. First of all, we should say, look, it's 70. Oh, no, wait, it's 65 degrees out right now. Last week at this time, it was about 3, right? And then tomorrow,
and it's going back down to 3.
Yes, exactly. So this is like insane. I mean, I just, I was looking at some of the weather stuff, and just for today, I was like, we're just gonna have to talk about that another time because this has been insane. But anyways, because both of the extreme cold, and then there was a freezing rain and everything like this. But my kids' school was canceled 2 days in a row. And so my wife and I had to reschedule some appointments and kind of like swap childcare stuff around and everything like that last week. And so I had to call Sean and let him know that I couldn't do the podcast last week. And I kept on meaning to say, just do a little Facebook Live or something, just let everybody know what happened. I'm sorry I never got around to that. It's just been a chaotic several days, but yeah, so I'm just kind of following some random lines of thought at this point as we get back into the swing of things back in the podcast. So, it's been pretty interesting seeing what's gone on with Trump just this past several days. A bit exasperating too as well, because you're seeing the consequences of this buffoonery. It draws lots of media attention, right? It actually damages relationships with people around the world, right? But it also fans the flames of the racism and the kind of the alt-right stuff that's been going on in this country. And then I start looking at, and it's why I brought it up in the intro thing, start looking at what happens with, you've got what the Washington Post and the Partnership for Public Service say that, there's about 626 jobs in the executive branch that are considered kind of critical for functioning of the federal government. That's not all of them. There's like 1,000 or something like that. But those are the ones that are considered critical just so the federal government can function effectively out of the executive branch. And there's 245 of those positions that are unfilled. And not even there's unfilled. There's no nominee even. Right. So they're not. This is unprecedented. And that's happening in light of. So just as one example, we have no ambassador to South Korea. Right. And this is happening at a time when Trump is like threatening like, an afternoon little, bombing campaign of North Korea.
My button's bigger.
Right, exactly. My button's bigger, and we've got this the South Korea is hosting the Winter Olympics that it's going to be taking place in just a few weeks. So you've got like this kind of stuff going on, and so the buffoonery has a certain kind of media appeal, and following it is kind of you almost have to do it because that's what's going on. But in the meantime, there's some real like concrete consequences that are going on. One, we've got that Republican tax bill that came through at the end of last year, right? And now we're seeing that, we've got all these unfilled jobs, right? Trump is canceling trips to the UK, right? Because Obama paid too much for the embassy. The new embassy, even though it was something that was done by George W. Bush, and they moved it for security reasons, right? There's like all this kind of garbage that's going on. And meanwhile, it's like literally the wet dream of the right wing about kind of like destroying the federal government is happening, right? It's happening like every single day that these positions aren't filled, every single day that a report doesn't get filed, every single day that we're paying attention to spelling mistakes in like, in his press memos as opposed to what's going to, yeah, exactly. Well, I hear that's a very important country.
Yeah, it's and the thing about he said about like the shithole comments, obviously it's racist, but I mean it's even more ironic. Like people from Norway and Finland and they're not going to want to fucking move to America. What? So they're going to have to pay for healthcare, pay for education, and have a lower standard of living? Like, yeah, I'm going to move to somewhere where I want a lower standard of living. Like, yeah, we'll go from these like ultra. I mean, the only reason why I say is because they're white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan children running around. Like, yeah.
Well, look, this is a piece from the Washington Post that's kind of writing about this. So, and then all this kind of so here's on Norway because of course you had the Norwegian was it an ambassador that was come over, or was it the actual prime minister or president?
I'm not sure.
I'm spacing it. It just kind of went out of my head. But so here's this from Washington Post. In light of Trump's alleged preference for immigrants from Norway, a number of users on social media were resharing a Norwegian website launched in 2016, aiming to persuade Trump-skeptical Americans to immigrate to Norway. Quote, "We are offering acute aid to descendants of immigrated Norwegians and other Americans considering a new start abroad," reads a welcome message on the website. Quote, "In light of the results of the U.S. presidential election," right? And then one Norwegian officials in Brussels joked that the country might consider changing its official tourism slogan from "powered by nature" to "not a shithole," before saying that the whole situation was a bit awkward. I think that, that's just... I mean, when you have kind of like foreign officials just make, saying like, what else do you do? I mean, just other than kind of like joke back, but we'll see.
Yeah, and also another thing is it's like, I mean, Africa is pretty much the last untapped continent for natural resources, wealth and natural resources, right? It's been colonized for hundreds of years now. It's the last untapped continent that we're going to exploit, for capitalist gains. And, this right here stops that exploitation and allows China to come in and China to, really develop these African nations because they don't have someone running around calling them a shithole nation.
Well, no, and like here's the interesting thing. I don't know if you saw this back and forth, whatever, but there was this. I can't remember where I was reading or listening to this or whatever. But basically, what was going on in China that China sees Trump as one of their biggest boons. Right, because there's been this upsurge of kind of nationalism in China, kind of like not like right-wing white nationalism like we have here, but in kind of like, nationalist identity, the kind of thing that we have in this country all the time, like, we're Americans, America, number one.
American ingenuity.
Right. I mean, so that's actually happening now in China in a way that hasn't been, hasn't been there. China has traditionally kind of avoided too much of the nationalism stuff, but they're really kind of embracing this right now. There's a movie that's out apparently that has that won an award that is all about Chinese nationalism. Not about Chinese nationalism. It's kind of like what Rambo was to us, right? Is how it was explained. I think it was the interview I heard on NPR or something like this. But anyways, so what the Chinese have been saying is that Trump is the biggest boon to them, because basically by drawing all the attention to him and his buffoonery. Number one. Number two, to basically leading an American withdrawal from the national stage, like globally, right? China basically sees in a position to very quietly begin to kind of expand its influence and its reach, right? And when asked pretty directly, this one kind of Chinese official asked pretty directly, they'll say, well, how long do you think this upsurge of China nationalism can last? I mean, is this, and they said, as long as Trump is in power. Right, so they directly tie this, and so what you mentioned there about Africa, the Chinese are very much seeing that Africa is one of these areas that they want to go in and develop. And let's be clear, they're doing it in a different kind of way than what we saw, like the West exploit Africa. Right, they're going in and they're basically from setting up shop in Africa. On this kind of Chinese model. So it's kind of, on the one hand, it's like, well, exploitation in any way is bad, right? Number two, it also says that this is kind of one of the concrete consequences of what's happening with Trump. This is also happening in Europe, where Europe is basically saying, just kind of starting to wash their hands of the U.S. and being like, we just got to do this on our own. So again, without being too hyperbolic, I mean, we might be kind of in the beginning stages of a kind of a reordering of the world system right now. To instead of it being just kind of U.S. centric and U.S. dominating everything, to these kind of like pockets of competing spheres of influence, in ways that are, it's not really, it's kind of, it really doesn't have an analog, I think, right? It's not really a Cold War. It's not in those kind of ideological terms. It has more to do with kind of more pragmatic spheres of influence of the direction of kind of global capitalism. So there's that. So anyway, one thing I want to talk. So we talked a little bit about this before, but so what was your take on the whole release of the dossier?
I want to know. Are the motherfucking P-tapes real?
I don't think you're alone in that, as coffee goes up my nose.
Let's just watch you snort coffee through your nose.
Yeah, exactly. Man, caffeine directly to the brain now. Yeah.
I want to know if the P-tapes are real. That's what I want to... I mean... I guess it was a big deal that Feinstein released this testimony.
Dude,
obviously.
it was huge. I mean, she was like, I'm waiting for the memes to come out, right? Like with Diane Feinstein coming out being like,
she is
with a hat on sideways with baller on,
like dropping assault like that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, she is like. I think she's probably someone who like the left hates the most.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, for her to do that must have been like really. She must have been like really pissed.
Well, yeah, and she's kind
at
of
that point, she had to have been like, because there's just no other way she would do it. I mean,
no, and look. I think really what was going on there is because Chuck Grassley
she just like woke up one day, is like, no, it's screw it. I'm just going to do this, and did it. And
well, look, let
the chips fall where they fall.
Well, I think it was even more than that. I think it was like, let the chips fall with them. I think it was like, come on, I dare you. Come get me. I dare you, Grassley. I'll level you. Right? I mean, I really think it was that kind of like, I'm throwing down on this. Because and again, I'm no fan of Diane Feinstein, right? And like, as you said, most of the left are not. But she's an institutionalist, right? And she's a person that has kind of like, follows the kind of procedures, and she's generally deferential to those kind of institutions. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, right? But I mean, it's like, and that was kind of what's going on. And what she saw, I think, right, is that Grassley and other members of the committee, Republican members of the committee, had formally said that they were all for releasing the transcript from Fusion GPS. Now, just in case you weren't following all this stuff, Fusion GPS was that firm that was hired basically to investigate what was happening with Trump, and eventually came up, hired. I'm spacing his name. Steele, yeah. Richard Steele? Is it Richard Steele?
Yeah, Richard Steele.
So Richard Steele to basically...
From MI6 or whatever, like the Russian, yeah.
Right, former MI6, UK MI6 guy who investigated the Russian end of things. And that was what kind of came up with, say, look, oh my God. And it was actually interesting in the dossier, basically in the testimony. Basically, there was the head of Fusion GPS basically said, look, we didn't expect to find some of this stuff. As a matter of fact, Steele came back and was like, we were looking
to go to the FBI on this?
Yeah. I mean, basically, he was the one who came back and said, look, I feel like we've uncovered something here that is not just about like corrupt business interests, things like this, but we have something that's potentially treasonous, and there's a potential to influence kind of like democratic elections. So Steele was the one who was coming back and pressuring Fusion GPS to release it. And the guy from Fusion GPS basically said, look, I was originally not like for it. He had to convince me, but finally, went forward to do that. And what was Grassley, instead of saying, okay, we're going to release these transcripts, instead of once the transcripts, once the Fusion GPS basically said, this is what happened, right? They came and actually gave their testimony. Apparently, they realized how damning this was going to be. And despite the fact that the folks from Fusion GPS said, no, please release the transcripts. We don't care. Please release them. They wouldn't do it. And instead, what they were doing is they were basically encouraging the Justice Department to file charges against Richard Steele, right? So I think Feinstein basically looked at that and said, okay, they're going to keep this transcript silent. And they're going to make suggestions that the transcript says that Steele was the problem. They're going to go after Steele. And so finally, I think she was just like, nope, this is not going to happen. We're going to put this out. And then, whether it's let the chips fall where they may, or kind of like, I dare you now. Right. And she just kind of put that stuff out. And I mean, that was, I did not expect that coming from her. But that was a ballsy move, as I've seen a Democrat, like a kind of middle of the road Democrat make in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like they're going to
learn
from
I guess one last glaring subject for the week.
Yes,
NOprah 2020.
Oprah. Yep.
Wait, suck all the oxygen out of the room for the week.
Yeah, well, at least the beginning part of the week. I mean, after the Golden Globes. I mean, look, I got to say, her Golden Globe speech was fantastic. It was great, right? It was an awesome speech. It was like, in many ways, I thought it was moving because she was able to tie, the issue of, like basically the Me Too movement to the issues of representation more broadly, right? About kind of the ends of kind of racism, the ends of that kind of stuff, and to kind of class issues to a certain degree. We're talking about the people, the people like her, right? That were able to kind of come from poverty into what she is today. And she, she gave a pretty pointed and powerful speech. There's no doubt about it. And so I put that in kind of category number one, right? As a piece of kind of American discourse, right, of speeches, it was fantastic, right, for what that is. But then what the next second, right, was basically you had these kind of like just flood of calls for now, like Oprah is going to run for president, right? You're a supporter, right?
Oh yeah, rousing supporter. But
Sean is at a loss for
where
words.
should I start here? No, I am not supporting Oprah running for president in 2020. And one of the things I think about, we were talking about this before the program. One of my main concerns of this is, like, to me, this would just be the Democrats just completely abandoning and completely giving up on the wealth and class issue within the country. Yes, a lot of the people who are in public office and higher office are part of like that 1%, 0.01% crowd. But I think this would completely stop the organizing that Occupy has done within the past, like not Occupy's, like that whole income inequality. I think this will stop that conversation together, where like we have a serious issue of class and wealth in this country, and us electing or even like thinking about putting up Oprah, which just shows one, Democrats are desperate for that, but also we're just kneecapping that movement where we're softening it with more excuses for neoliberal policies without actually going with for actual hard-line reforms.
Right. So here's, and Sean and I we talked about this for a while before the show today. And so here's my take on this, right?
Like, I think people would build Oprah up as the savior the same way they built Obama up as the savior. And Obama wasn't the savior. That he was pretty much just a middle of the road DLC, centrist conservative, like centrist Democrat on these economic issues. You know, like we could have had the public option when it came to healthcare, and we decided not to. I mean, we could have passed a full comprehensive healthcare reform through the Senate with a 50+1 vote, because bills pass the Senate all the time, 50+1. I mean, this is just showing you. And no, we need 60. No, you don't need 60. You could have just passed it with 59 senators and leave it at that, and have a thriving like healthcare reform. And yeah,
no, right. So
I'm diverging here, but
here's excuse me. Here's kind of how I approach this. Right, was when I share your concern. My biggest concern here is that we're getting in this move of, say, cult of personality, that we need another cult of personality in order to kind of respond to what happened with Trump, right? It's a very safe position for the existing kind of Obama-Clinton Democratic Party, right? That DLC Democratic Party, which likes professionals, that likes Hollywood, that has got its streams of influence and its streams of funding tied to that class of folks, right? And I think that basically my biggest concern there is that what it does, it kneecaps, right, a lot. No, that's too strong of a word, right? It will serve to try to undercut the kind of progressive organizing that has been going on at the grassroots level from the left, right? So right now, from my vantage point, I look at what's happening. All the energy in the Democratic Party right now has nothing to do with that Clinton-Obama wing, right? It's everything to do with the people that are organizing on the ground.
Elected to office right now.
Right. Whether we're talking about, like the kind of like Our Revolution DSA folks, or we're talking about the Me Too movement, that is where the energy is going, and that has the potential, right? This is kind of what I was talking about on the Rick Smith show this past week, is right now we've got three things going on. We've got a crisis in the Democratic Party, number one. We've got a crisis in the labor movement, number two. And we've got a crisis in terms of kind of like of patriarchy, right? In a good way. Right, the crisis of patriarchy, right, in terms of like control over the realms of power, and in each one of those locations, we have tremendous opportunities, right, to kind of reach, like, to reform and reposition and kind of like put a set a new course for the Democratic Party and the labor movement. With all the kind of Supreme Court stuff coming down, you've got basically the old guard that wants to kind of circle the wagons and hold on to what it's got, to the emerging new guard of folks that are kind of looking for a more militant labor organizing labor movement that are beginning to take control of the realms of power. And then within the the structures of power itself, we see kind of women emerging as kind of like the tip of the spear on a kind of a new direction in American politics. All that stuff is fantastic, but it all has its energy from the base up, right, from the ground up. What the Oprah situation, kind of the potential of trying to recruit her to kind of run for the Democratic nomination for presidency, has the potential to suck so much of the life out of that. Now, frankly, I think the movements are strong enough at this point, right, where they're not going to buy into this stuff, right? And I think the memory of being burnt by Obama is still fresh in people's minds, and all that's a good thing moving forward. But the fact is that that cult of personality we should not jump on the board. I think it was an easy thing for a bunch of professional and kind of like upper class and kind of Wall Street centric and Hollywood centric liberals and Democrats to get behind. So having said that, I've also had a problem with some of the responses to Oprah running, if she's going to run, right? Where basically just flips the script and stays within that cult of personality, right? Makes all sorts of claims about Oprah, about, how she would do X and she would do Y and she's blah, 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 blah. When really it's just more about her as a person, right? The fact is that we don't know what kind of campaign she would run if she ran, right? And again, I am not inclined. Let me be very clear. I'm not in the camp that is saying that, okay, yes, Oprah. I'm much more excited about and interested in a candidate that is coming out of the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party, whether it be Elizabeth Warren, even, Kamala Harris. I mean, I know that she's not exactly progressive on some issues, right? But she's got some steel in her, and I like that, right? And this kind of new brand in the party that's coming up, and that's really what I would like to see the primary get fought out, because then it would guarantee that would happen over questions of policy, not personality. With Oprah coming in the race, that jeopardizes that. But having said that, right? What are the policy positions, right? What are the kinds of ways that what if Oprah came out, say, for example, for, universal health care and free college tuition, right? And wanted to kind of put on her platform within the first 100 days that she wanted to sign the card check legislation for unions, right? I mean, again, I don't think that is necessarily in the cards, but my point being is that the response to Oprah has got to be more than just kind of like, because she's this rich figure, we're going to celebrity. It also has to be kind of always coming back to think, no, the left right now, we are in a position to demand policy, to demand kind of concrete platforms that are going to be what we want. And I think that's where we gotta get the rubber to our, keep the rubber to the road, so to speak. So, I mean, I come back and forth in this. I don't like the kind of the tit for tat crap, right? When it comes to this stuff, I also don't like the fact that you got these kind of DLC Democrats coming out and just all want to just immediately like give up the game and just kind of fall in with Oprah so they don't have to do any work to reform the party. But I think we got to remember is our strength on the left comes from supporting the organizing, right? And I don't think it's going to help anybody, right? From my perspective, is to just kind of become like Oprah haters, right? Because I think what that's going to do is that's going to separate out kind of groups of folks. Because if Oprah does run, people are going to be surprised. She's going to bring a lot of people out to vote. She will have a lot of people behind her. She's got a huge following. Does that mean that she's got a huge following on the left? Hell no. That's not what that means, right? But I think that we've got to, again, always come back to the policy, always come back to kind of what our initiatives are, and always come back to our base of power and not get starstruck, whether for the good or for the bad side of it, whether we want to, because we have this freaking crazy celebrity culture in this country where everything becomes about kind of like living vicariously through what's happening among celebrities. We got to get away from that stuff and basically come back to our power base, which happens in our communities and the organizing that's already begun. So, end of diatribe, Sean. But Sean's done with this one.
Yeah, I am because I don't. No, I agree with what you said. I mean, I haven't put like that much thought into it as you did. Like, intellectually, I was like I cringe at the idea that we are propping up someone like Oprah to run for president simply because of she's a billionaire, she's a very popular celebrity, and like we don't. This shows you, like, yes, she's smarter than Trump, probably, most likely, yes. I mean, absolutely, like 1,000% smarter than Trump. But yes. Like, is she gonna be able to solve? I don't see. It's different running a business than it is running a political country or running a political entity, and yeah, we're seeing that unfold right now. No, but I think like there's a lot more that goes to the job than just being president.
But this, like, no. But see, this is also the thing that I think we have to be really careful about, right? And not just draw equivalences, like just like and not say like, well, look, Trump ran a business, right, and shows that the country's harder to do that. Therefore, Oprah runs a business, and then it would be hard for her to. No, I don't think those things work. Right, I don't think that equation works. I think, frankly, if Oprah ever got elected a president, she would be a hell of a lot of a better president, just in terms
absolutely.
of the nuts and bolts of actually running the government, right, and getting people in place and building a power base and things like this. If anything, that's one thing that she's been able to demonstrate that she will do. And she's smart, right, and so she's not like this buffoon we've got in the Oval Office now. Right, but those are secondary questions, right? So in terms of the competence of her competence is not an issue for me, right? What's at issue for me is the policy stuff and the Democratic Party looking to kind of undercut the progressive wing of the party, right, by immediately throwing all of its weight and all of its money and resources ahead of the primaries, just like they did with Clinton, right? Ahead of the primaries to one candidate that they feel comfortable with. That's my concern. So, whatever, if she turned out to be a great candidate, I would support her. And I wouldn't kind of also wouldn't repeat like what we saw that happened in the last election. The people that just put all the hate on Hillary Clinton, right, and refused to do anything and support Hillary Clinton after Bernie Sanders lost the primary. Right. And now we've lost the Supreme Court for a generation. And now we've got freaking like a decimation of our environmental protections. Right. Because of what's happening with the Trump administration. Now we're seeing a decimation of the middle class because of the Republican tax policy that just got passed. Right. That would not have happened if Hillary Clinton was in office. Right. So, again, that's another thing that I do not want to repeat as we kind of move forward. And again, 2020 is a long ways off here, right? I think our primary focus anyways right now has got to be 2018 and what happens at the state level, what's going to happen in the Senate and goes on beyond. But I did, look, my first response to as well was exactly what you're saying. I mean, like when I first heard, the next day after her Golden Globes, like her speech, which was a great speech, and not just great, like, oh, it was just good. It was fantastic. But it's like, okay, we got to get back on it. We got to get back on the train here. We can't have speculation about 2020 take over everything on the kind of like the official Democratic. But anyways, I got to stop talking about this because I could just go on forever. But yeah, anything else for before we take a break, Sean?
Nope. Let's roll into the second half.
Okay, we're gonna roll in the second half. I'm just gonna cut. That's like my. Sometimes you just gotta drop the cleaver and stop the discussion. Otherwise, it's just gonna go on and on. All right, when we come back, we're gonna talk about some stuff going on here in Pennsylvania, and who just may be the shadow DNC chair, at least so nominated here in Pennsylvania. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We will be back right after this message.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1942. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt established the National War Labor Board under Executive Order 9017. The board was designed to mediate and settle disputes in the various defense industries. Its purpose was to prevent any strikes or lockouts that would interfere with war production. The War Labor Board consisted of 12 representatives, 4 each from industry, labor, and the public. It established procedures for dispute resolution and detailed the scope of grievances, arbitration, and award enforcement. The board had the authority to issue binding agreements and to recommend government seizures of plants involved in work stoppages. It instituted the Little Steel formula to allow for cost of living increases in an effort to stem inflation. In exchange for the No Strike Pledge, it instituted maintenance of membership in unionized workplaces, which made union membership automatic for new hires and mandated employer collection of union dues. During the war, it imposed tens of thousands of wage dispute settlements and wage agreements. In a 1942 case against General Motors, the board mandated equal pay for equal work for women and minorities. Those critical of the board opposed the No Strike Pledge and compulsory arbitration as clampdowns on labor's power and independence. They argued it was stacked with open shop advocates, enforced wage controls and freezes, and encumbered workers with endless red tape, runarounds, and delays in resolutions. Labor historian Steve Frazier notes that after the 1942 elections, pro-business appointees made union organizing efforts throughout the South and in the retail and service sectors difficult. The board ceased its functions at the end of 1935, though it set precedents for arbitration that are still in use today. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. So Sean, it looks like we've got some, I don't know if I'm ready to call it a spine yet, but at least it leads something that's limping towards a plan. The PA Democratic Party about the Turn PA Blue campaign. They just kicked that off this past week.
So I don't believe the Turn PA Blue, I might have misworded that. It seems like it's a grassroots effort, the Turn PA Blue. It's something that the local Democrats have got jumped on with an event last night in Delaware County in Haverford, and it definitely seems like this is more of your grassroots driven progressive organizing that's been going on. But this is focusing on flipping the House and focusing on state races. And for anyone who doesn't know or doesn't know geography that well, the collar counties around Philadelphia have a lot of Republicans sitting there in the House, and there's an effort to unseat them and start flipping these seats and making them blue, and potentially flipping the House in 2018.
Yeah, and I think actually instead of you putting that, I think I put that wrong. I mean, what I meant was kind of like we see some PA Dems instead of not just the PA Democratic Party, because clearly the PA Democratic Party is not as doesn't have that kind of foresight to actually put its investment in this, but at least this kind of group of Democrats, the organized Democrats, and as you call them, the collar counties, and Delco, looking to actually build off the victories and build off the organizational efforts of things like Indivisible and so on, to actually look to getting people elected.
And also Delaware County saw a very huge victory with the countywide elections for the first time in 30 or 40 years. Democrats are now occupying the row offices within there, or they have a majority of the county commission offices. This is the first time in 30 or 40 years that Democrats have held these seats, and they're looking to hold on to them and not give them up. The event was headlined by Keith Ellison, State Senator Art Haywood, Pennsylvania State Representative Leanne Kruger-Branicki, and then there were also a few other state reps there. I believe Representative Joanna McClinton out of the Philadelphia area was there, and then Marcel Groen, Pennsylvania Democratic chair, was there. Came out of his groundhog hole for the day. But no, I mean, it seems like people are getting motivated to start running. People are motivated to run. Pennsylvania House, I think they have up to 155 candidates running total. Their high water mark was 170, and that was in 2006. So these are incumbents plus challengers.
Yeah, this is gonna be something to definitely keep your eyes on. Like, if you want to see a little bit more about this group, I mean, you go turnpablue.org, and you can see some of the kind of upcoming events and some of the news and updates they're putting on here. And this is kind of how they frame it. Like, this is from their website. It says, Turn PA Blue is focused on changing the political landscape in PA. Democrats are dangerously outnumbered in the PA House and Senate. We are in a very vulnerable position and cannot protect a veto by Governor Wolf. The GOP has an overwhelming majority, 34-16, and the Dems have lost 7 seats since 2014. In the House, it is 122-82 in favor of the GOP. The good news is that in several districts, the Republican incumbent represents a majority of Democratic voters. We must respond by build a winning campaigns in 2018. In the coming months, we're putting calls out for volunteers and to support the state candidates, blah, blah, blah. Right? So you can get a sense of kind of how they're framing it, and where they're coming for it. One of the things is looking at their website, though, I'm hoping that all the stuff that's been going on with Dalen Leach, right, in terms of the kind of the reports coming out about his sexual harassment, kind of inappropriate comments, and kind of intimidation, and all the stuff that's kind of been brought to bear as part of kind of Me Too movement stuff, isn't gonna isn't going to split these kind of efforts, right? Because so, for example, even on turn PA Blue. They're really focused on look what's happened in terms of gerrymandering, and they've got the video from Dalen Leach, right? Like to actually there to say you want to check out something about gerrymandering, check out this video from Dalen Leach about gerrymandering, and it was actually a really good video. So I'm just hoping that the coalition is not going to be destroyed by that. The fact that you had Leanne Kruger-Brannicke there at that event is a very, very positive step forward alongside Keith Ellison.
Yes, and also with Art Haywood, Senator Haywood out of the Philadelphia suburbs. He's like Cheltenham, Mount Airy, so like the very north part of North Philly, going into the Cheltenham and those lower suburbs right outside the city. He has also been doing a great job filling in as a progressive leader, and he's also someone to keep an eye on, who's doing good stuff within the legislature, and who's really taking the time to learn and take the time to learn the ways of the way around the building. But no, he's also doing a great job.
Yeah, no, so good stuff, man. Let's watch what goes on there. I mean, I would also check out their if you go to at Let's Turn PA Blue, that's their Twitter handle. It's worth taking a peek at some of the video and some of the pictures they got up from the event, and also to kind of keep an eye on that. And if you happen to be in those areas, we're going to need volunteers. And look, I think we're at the point right now. We've got some strong showing from folks from the DSA, in Bucks County, Montgomery County, and things like this. We've got some Good Eye Revolution people out there. That this is an opportunity to not just say get involved with the agenda of Turn PA Blue, but to actually help form that agenda, right, and to kind of push efforts to get behind these progressive candidates, because it's not just having a Democrat in the office, although that's helpful. The idea is that you want to have progressive Democrats that are going to be defining the agenda. So, and also, one of the things that's like really important with these elections coming up. Say if the Democrats are looking to pick up 10 or 15 seats, they need like 23 or almost like they need an incredible amount to flip the House. If they pick up 10 seats or 15 seats, it moderates. Oh, it does a lot. Even if they don't pick up the House, it moderates a lot of the committees, the House committees, the Education Committee, the Budget Committee, where instead of having a 14 to 10 or 14 to 11 or 14 to 9, a disparity between Republicans and Democrats, you have something that's closer to, a 50-50 committee hearing where one vote goes the other way. You actually have power to stop bills inside committee. Yeah, so. And you also then you basically strip away the the ability for Republicans to override a veto. I mean that's important right there. So absolutely, folks, absolutely. Especially in some of these issues too as well. What we saw, like say for example, Senate Bill 3, we also see the legislation, right to work legislation and things where you get some moderate Democrats, right? Moderate Republicans actually breaking from the most extreme aspects of the Republican Party in the state to actually not allow some horrible legislation to go forward. If you actually kind of, add 10 seats or something like this for Democrats, again, you basically, you kneecap that effort entirely. So also, Sean, you've been pointing out too as well. When we left in 2017, we saw this big kind of upsurge of efforts from the Me Too movement, from women legislators in Pennsylvania to basically turn the tide against sexual harassment and stuff in the state capitol. We did this collaborative podcast with the folks over at Inside 254. Talking about what's happening at the state level and why this is so important. And so it looks like, after the holiday break and session comes back in, the Me Too movement has not gone away with 2017.
No, it has not. No legislation has been introduced yet. They've only in for 2 days so far this month, and they're only being for like another 3 this whole entire month. So I don't see any legislation pick up off the ground anytime soon. Or within the night, it'll be interesting to see when the legislation starts going around. But there's been some more sexual harassment and assault stories coming out of the state government. One top Senate security officer, was forced to resign after sending inappropriate pictures and text messages to female staffers. A former state senator who was part of the Wolf administration, he was forced to resign after a story surfaced that the report was filed that he inappropriately touched a female staffer on the back end. That has come forward. And then the Wolf administration settled a $900,000 sexual harassment suit or settlement case incident that occurred at the Department of Revenue between 2011 and 2013. That's when Governor Corbett was in office. This last story is a pretty big one. The charges are pretty egregious. There's a lot of racial dynamic. There's clearly racist dynamics here between the manager and the female staffer. The manager is white. The female staffer is African American. He pled no contest to a degree of charges, and he is on probation for 4 years and will have to register as a sex offender coming out of this.
Good.
So this wasn't something that they were trying to hush hush. This was something that had to get settled because of how serious this is something that had to get settled because of how egregious the crime was, and the damages that were there.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's interesting. I think it's important. You and I were talking about this again before the show. Is what we saw with this payout from the Wolf administration was different from what we saw. Of the reports about, say, for example, the Democratic Party, the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, using taxpayer funds to pay out, basically hush money with non-disclosure agreements and all this other kinds of stuff. What we see here with the Wolf administration, apparently this was not that kind of scenario where we're saying everyone's got, this woman has got to be quiet about it. Now, I might be wrong about that, but it seems like, okay, look, this was apparently just compensation, as they saw it, for basically what this woman had experienced. So, but what that suggests in many ways is that we're just, we're going to see more of this, right?
There's going to be a lot more coming out. And it also appears that Dalen Leach is still running for Congress.
So is his campaign slogan going to be Dalen Leach, Wrecking Ball of Hate? Is that what it's going to be?
No, I think that's been trademarked by someone already. WB of H is a new tagline someone's been using. So I think he's late to that. But yeah, so this post popped up in a Facebook group the other day. A lady posted, "I am proud to announce that I'm leaving turned PA Blue in an official capacity to order support Dalen Leach's reactivated campaign for Congress." Now, this is something she wrote and then quickly edited it a couple of times throughout the evening after getting called out. This post turned into a shit show that was actually shut off by the admins of the Facebook group after about 20 hours of going back and forth.
Oh, really?
So there was there's a few people from the cult of Dalen, and there were a lot of people who were just trying to shut this shit down in conversation real quickly. So she goes, "Support Dalen Lynch's Reactivate campaign. Many of you know that Dalen and I have known each other for 4 decades. I have been ceaselessly amazed by Dalen's fearless progressive work for women, the environment, the education, and a range of crucial causes. I will still be there for all the wonderful Turn PA Blue candidates and in a volunteer capacity, and hope to coordinate the efforts between candidates for a PA Senate and Assembly with other candidates up and down the Democratic ticket." And period. And then she put it parentheses. "And I appreciate this affectionate and very respectful hand on my shoulder." And it's a picture of Dalen Leach, her and Dalen, with his hand caressing her shoulder. So these people are still out there.
Well,
these people just need to shut the fuck up and go away at this point.
Well,
you are still not getting the fucking point here.
Right.
I mean, and it's we don't know if Dalen is reactivating his campaign. This is what this one person claimed. The other night, he was meeting with the Radnor Democrats. From people I'm talking to back home, it seems like he's trying to shore up support to relaunch his campaign. From my observations, the observations I'm seeing, nothing is official yet that he's doing this, but there might also be some legal things involved where he has to either send a lot of money back or campaign. So he might not. So with people asking for their donations back. So that might actually be something why he still hasn't officially dropped out of this race yet. But no, it's it's his supporters that are still out there making a mockery of this, like these claims. I mean, and he published an op-ed, which wasn't really that great of an op-ed to publish. He's like, yes, I need time to reflect, blah, blah, blah. And I apologize. I mean, he said, I'm sorry a couple of times in there, but like, dude, you knew this was coming for like months now. And it took you 3 weeks after just hitting the implode button and going after every single woman involved in this story pretty much on social media for you to come up with this apology, this half-baked apology. Like, I mean, sure, you could say I'm sorry and I regret these decisions and blah, 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 but people aren't buying it, and rightfully so. Yeah,
you know, it's I think that let's if we assume the best case scenario, right? The best case scenario being that he did these things, right? They were inappropriate, but he actually
owned up to it right away.
Well, like, and he wants to square that behavior with his support for women's issues and for progressive causes, right? That's the best case scenario, right? And the best case scenario, then he totally missed the opportunity. Basically, what he should have done is like, okay, look, I'm going to resign. Because I am so committed to X, Y, and Z, right? Because of these things, that I'm going to take some time, I'm going to work some stuff out, and then I'm going to be part of the solution, right? From outside politics and earn my way back. That would be an appropriate response for that. Instead, this looks to be solely about digging in and trying to maintain power at all costs. And that's really, that's where we are. And so instead of actually kind of doing the right thing and getting out of the way, he's just kind of going to make a shit show of this whole campaign because of this.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, and he's trying to hit up support from people within the wealthy Jewish community in Montgomery County, like Lower Montgomery County. I have a couple of friends who are part of that community. They're letting me know what's going on. They're active within that part of the Democratic community. They are part of the Jewish community in that area. I know he is, in their opinion, he is going down there and he is still trying to shore up support to run for Congress because he has a following of people. There is a cult-like following that he has within that area, within southeastern PA and with around parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a story. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going
to be a textbook on what not to do.
Well, exactly. But it's also going to see okay, how are we responding to these things, right? And how are we kind of making sense of what happens when we have, say, a politician or another figure, a political figure that does something like this, right? That is kind of, outed as being a sexual harasser or inappropriate behavior, whatever it might be. How do we deal with our relationship to that person, right? So instead of having looking at these people again, it's like this, it's just another version of the celebrity culture crap, right? Where we kind of look at this person and we're all in, we're on their team regardless, and we're going to turn a blind eye to this stuff. But having to kind of deal
and
with
exact rhetoric they're using, Team Dalen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, instead of it being this is really hard. And I get the fact that when somebody, when people, I'm like for example, with Al Franken, when stuff came out about Al Franken, I really liked Al Franken as a politician. I loved his questioning in hearings, right? I thought his politics were freaking top notch, right? And I felt that when it was coming out, when these charges of sexual harassment were coming against him. But just because I feel something and I feel like that's a hit doesn't mean that I have to kind of therefore avoid the feeling of being let down, right? And of being upset. I don't let that overtake things and just start, nope, therefore I'm going to deny it and I'm going to jump in behind Al Franken. No, right? I mean, the more things can happen. And I think that as more allegations come out and we're actually getting to the point where we're actually finding out more about these people that are public lives, we're going to have to just come to terms with this as people. Right, that we have to have complex emotions, and we're going to have to deal with those complex emotions, right? And that, frankly, is part of a healthy conversation that we all need to be having, instead of this kind of dig in behind our teams.
And one of the things that's like the people who, a lot of the supporters that are giving me flack online are these like, I'm with her or still with her, hashtag the resistance liberals up there. And I'm just like, you know, like,
which that's like, just freaking most ironic thing I heard.
And I'm just like, okay, so your campaign spent 18 months of crying sexism, which, yes, rightfully so. Like, especially with Trump, I don't think there was sexism with Sanders. I think that was more of just an issue with the Clinton camp or Clinton supporters had with Bernie potentially being a threat to like ceasing her political campaign.
No, but I have to say, you have to have, I mean, look, you got to be able to say is that there were people in the Bernie campaign.
Oh, no, there were definitely your Bernie bros, misogynist Bernie bros out there.
Exactly. So, I mean, I want to make that 100% clear. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like, but there was also those tropes that like Bernie wasn't as diverse. He just had a bunch of white people supporting him when that was just not true the whole entire time. Like, but like the thing is with, like you have these people who were crying foul for a year and a half, 2 years almost about sexism and institutional sexism, and then you're yelling at us online for going after a person who has committed sexual harassment simply because you're on his team,
right?
And it's just like that's like the biggest like his biggest like group of supporters, those hashtag resistance libs, like. There, you know, it's like I'm still with her, but I'm also with him, but because he's on my team, even though he commits sexual harassment. Right. Like we're not talking about there's a difference between assault and harassment, and telling inappropriate and dirty jokes all the time when people in your office don't like it. That is harassment. Like that is degrading. That is harassment, and yeah, you should be in trouble for that.
Yep. Like
people are like, oh, well, you know, women have it easy today. Not like when I was a woman trying to get involved in politics 30, 40 years ago. And it's like, yeah, but it's also a cultural thing too. It's just like, I never see like, my thing is like, wow, should I say something right now? Because this joke might get me fired. Like if you have to like stop and think about it, probably shouldn't say it.
Right. And you know, and I get, you know, there's in my most generous moments, right? I mean, I can get why some people might initial reaction will feel like, and it's the same kind of crap with like when we're talking about immigration, we're talking about demographic change and all this. When people start feeling like something's changing, but you know what? Things change all the freaking time, right? And the only difference here is right now is people's who have unquestioned privilege are suddenly being confronted with the fact that that privilege is no longer going to be just granted to them for the sake of their skin color or their gender or their class position, right? All that stuff is important, right? And I think that, you know, that's I can understand that people have feelings about that, but just because they have feelings, it doesn't mean it translates into therefore it has to be defended. I mean, that's what we see kind of happen with the whole Trump thing, and this is what we're happening here. And it's like it's the poverty of our politics that we can't have those kind of conversations, even internally on the left. Right, and really understand what actually living a dynamic life, living a full life, living a full political life too, requires us to constantly be assessing and reassessing our own kind of position in the world, right, and kind of how we respond to things, right, and to think thoughtfully about them. If one thing, we talk about the influence of social media on this, is that's the one thing that it kind of like exacerbates some of the worst tendencies that people have of just want to have that kind of immediate response to things. Everything becomes knee-jerk and responsive as opposed to thoughtful. But again, like I'll just go back to the fact that those thoughtful conversations are actually happening. Right, they're happening in these communities, and kind of people have sustained, or we're building these as sustained organizations, an attempt to kind of like really kind of change the dynamic and change the trajectory of progressive politics, and that's a good thing. It's just going to take some while to shake out, and I just encourage people. Just don't get so freaking locked into like the knee-jerk reaction on stuff, right? Take the step back, like just like you said, like if you have this little nagging doubt in your mind that says, maybe this is probably not a good idea to say, maybe not say it, and then don't sit there and cry to all your friends that you're being censored. No, say that actually voice came from inside your own head, right? Maybe it's conflicting. You have conflicted values in your own head, and maybe you should work that stuff out with other people, right?
The PC mob.
Whatever. PC mob's in your head, folks. I say this all the time. Is like that's part of what our values do. Is that our values are challenged all the time. And I say this about one thing I will always give to growing up Catholic is one thing that I took away from growing up Catholic. And I've said this before on the show that I was all in when I was a kid, and what I meant by all in by there, it was I believed in the things like we should help other people out, right? That we should that it's about kind of sharing love. It's about kind of like the people who are poor are the ones that that we should be paying our attention to, not with the people with all the money, right? And that's kind of like how I always came in it. And it was always for me. It was always about. It's not like these abstract values about things that happen in the world, but when you're asked to do good. Right, when you're saying making the right choice, you were held personally accountable for that, right? In the kind of Catholic mythology, right? The idea that when you see somebody who's poor, you see somebody being mistreated, right? And you have a decision to make at that point, right? You don't just kind of turn your head and walk by because that's a decision, right? And so you have to live your morality, right? That's kind of what I always took away from stuff. And that's the same kind of stuff here, right? It's like, if we're going to live this kind of like a progressive morality, then kind of it's on us, right? I mean, not to, take over that slogan, but, it is. So, anyways, that's all I got, Sean.
I was going to say the one thing I got from Catholic school is the Catholic guilt.
Yeah, that's true.
Just put my head down and go.
And go and just feel bad all the time.
Well, no, I don't mean Catholic guilt like that. I mean Catholic guilt in a way where I could just put my head down and just power through something, like, you know what I mean? Or test someone's wills to like see who'll break first, and I won't be the one that breaks because 13 years of Catholic schooling, it hardens the soul.
Yeah, I was lucky enough not to go to Catholic school. So I just went to church every Sunday. Crazy. All right, well, we're coming up to a break, folks, and we're going to kind of finish off today with our last call, and we'll talk a little beer, maybe some things kind of going forward for 2018. I just want to remind everybody, you can become a member of Raging Chicken Press and support this work right here, just like Emmy did this past week, right? Coming in at the $10 a month level. We've got that special that's running through the end of February. You become a member of Raging Chicken at the $10 a month level. You simply go to patreon.com/rcpress, and we will send you Steven Singer's new book, Gadfly on the Wall, A Public School Teacher Speaks Out on Racism and Reform. But, you don't have to come to the $10 a month. You can join for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and get your membership right front and center in your pocket for 2018, everybody. All right, we're coming up to the break. We'll be back right after this with our last call. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, Hard-hitting investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive, activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's time for Let's Go! So, Sean, man, before we get into the beer and all the fun stuff, did you make any New Year's resolutions this year?
I did, and it's already broken.
See, I didn't even give you a heads up that I was going to ask you that one. Because I knew it was going to be broken. Why don't you tell everybody about your failed New Year's resolution?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Sean decided to go to Facebook, right, and social media and proclaim his resolution was not to have a beer for the month of January.
That lasted like 3 days. I mean, I have been going back to the gym the past 2 weeks, getting back into that habit of going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. So I feel like I'm doing good.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I actually, been on the track. I've actually lost like just over 10 pounds now since the beginning of the year, and trying to. And I actually went to the dentist yesterday too, as well, because I've been I don't go to the dentist very good, and my one side of my mouth is rotten out, so I have to have a crown put on and things like this and stuff. So I said, okay, I'm going to take better care of myself. This has been, past several years. I'm not just because of politics and stuff like that, but even like, my work has been kind of crazy, and just kind of, we had the strike, and then, constantly living in a world of budget cuts and this kind of stuff has just been exhausting. And so, I think 2018 for me said, okay, look, we, if the Trump is our low point, right? How do we start, taking care of each other, but also taking care of ourselves?
You got to go back to the gym. The more you gym, you can smash the fascia a lot easier.
That's exactly right.
Smash the fascia.
Right, exactly. So turn the fat into muscle. That's going to be where I'm going in kind of 2018. But it's simple for me. It's like I got to stop like shoving food in my mouth every chance I get, just because I'm feeling bad about the world. So that's kind
of like me, but with beer. I don't eat that much, but I pick everything up in bad beer carbs. Oh, it's so bad. I mean, I only have like 2 or 3 beers a night. But it's just like, yeah, I want to cut that back. Move over to other things. Like, instead of having like 3 beers after work and unwind, just have a thing of whiskey, shot of whiskey. I got some good bourbon. So,
yeah, I've been, I don't think I've had more than a couple beers so far in 2018. Like, so since
damn.
Yeah, well, I've been, my problem has always been like, I'd sit there and I'd have so much stuff I'd want to get done. And then I would sit there and like, by the time my kids are in bed and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, want to just sit and veg out in front of the TV and do some stuff on the computer. And then I'll pour myself a beer and have a couple beers and things like this. And it's late. So not only then I get hungry and have a little something to eat too as well. So like, not only am I having beer at the end of the day, I'm having some food, and then, that's just freaking dead calories right there. So I have had, it's not that I have laid off entirely. I mean, I've had like a beer here and there, and I've also had some glasses of wine, like just a glass of wine at the end of the day, and just kind of little things like that. Learning like, hey, a glass of wine is about 100 calories less than a beer. So, okay, give myself that as opposed to the other things. So, I'll give
So
people updates on this. I'll keep myself honest for this
You'll
year.
be a sommelier pretty soon.
Say what?
You'll be a wine sommelier.
Nah, I'll never be that.
Sommelier, whatever.
I like wine. Don't get me wrong. I just like I'm much more of a beer person. But
do you know Pennsylvania produces like the most amount of beer per barrels in the country?
Really?
Yes, we produce 3.4 million barrels of beer a year in Pennsylvania.
That's awesome. Well, I guess I'm in the right place then.
Yeah.
Well, especially I think
to like break those.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Break those New Year's resolutions.
So is that your justification for why you didn't get through the month? Is that it? I couldn't help it. I was just surrounded by it.
No,
it was coming for me.
I actually went day drinking at Evergreen. It was just like,
if you're gonna break it, might as well break it good.
Yeah.
There you have it. Well, and on that, in the spirit of breaking resolutions, I can encourage you more. So I'm psyched that Free Will's got their new Sour Sundays coming out. The first of the year is coming out on January 28th from 12 to 8. That should be pretty cool. They're also teasing out their release of Peachy McPeachface, which is a barrel-aged sour, which you said you loved. But I didn't realize that that you had loved it so much.
It is an awesome fucking sour beer.
Yeah, I think it should be coming out pretty soon. So I'm psyched about that. Saucony Creek is also getting ready to release an Imperial Coffee Stout. Did I give you one of those once?
No.
That was really good. There's I've been getting back into it's funny because you'd give me the what do you call it?
The Coconut Sunnyside?
Coconut Sunnyside, which was
How'd you like the
freaking
Cocoa
amazing.
Nibs?
Oh my god, what's that? I like them both. It was funny. The Cocoa Nibs one, it had that little, for lack of a better word, it's almost like that kind of like more of the bitter dry bite. Right,
yeah.
And it just very subtly, right? I mean, not a lot. I mean, their stouts are just probably some of the best I've had, right? And I've been thinking about I've been missing stouts. I've been on doing sours and IPAs for a while, but stouts is really kind of my home territory. So it's I'm glad to see that Saucony Creek coming out with that, and I'm looking forward to enjoying some of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, not that I'm not going to get some Peachy McPeachface, that's what I'm saying. So what do you got going on out at Pizza Boy? Anything new?
Well, we were closed for a few days last week to redo the floors, so I enjoyed a few days off. And then earlier this week, we tapped our sour front side lip slide. The front side lip slide's double IPA. It's also a skateboarding move for people out there who don't know. Mm-hmm. They brewed that beer originally like 3 years ago to help rebuild the Bloomsburg skate park, and they brewed it a couple summers ago. Not this past summer, the previous summer. One of the new brewers who stepped on to help in the back, liked it so much, where they've been brewing it pretty consistently. And Frontside Lipslide is a 10% double IPA, and it drinks like 6 or 7%.
Yeah, it does.
And if you want to watch a party devolve into debauchery in real life, just sit back and wait a couple hours, and then just start breaking out cans of this, or just break out a case of this frontside lip slide. That will get the party. That will end the party real quickly.
Well, I can only imagine then what the scene is going to look like Sunday at Pizza Boy with that on tap.
Well, it's on tap now.
No, that's what I mean. But Sunday is the Eagles game's on Sunday, right?
It's tomorrow, actually.
Was it tomorrow? Is it really? Oh, I thought it was Sunday.
Yeah, they play Saturday.
Oh, my bad. Oh yeah, I'm looking right at it right here. Duh. So basically, tomorrow you're going to be able to watch the party devolve into debauchery right there, since that's on tap.
Yeah, since the Eagles are probably going to lose.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm not. This season has me pissed. Like
that's actually unusual. That's very unusual for an Eagles fan. Just saying.
I haven't felt this angry about a sports season. Because, like, knowing what could have been with, like, Wentz not getting hurt, like, Eagles could have possibly been the Super Bowl favorites. And I haven't felt this bad about a sports season since the Phillies lost to the Yankees in the World Series. You feel cheated.
Yeah, it's like almost like, it's almost like you guys put, all your support behind your celebrity quarterback instead of built out your campaign and organization. I'm just saying.
Oh no, they have that. I mean, they have a strong defense. If they win tomorrow, it's going to be through the defense.
Yeah, no. I'm just kidding. Like, I'm not hating on the Eagles at all. I mean, I feel really bad because it's like that. It really was an incredible season. And it was an incredible season that could have, again, they could have dominated the Super Bowl this year. Had they kept going, I think it's not only just the loss of Wentz, but also the fact that I think it was a punch in the gut to the team too, because they felt that so much was going forward. And, and Philly's always got the hanging over your head that kind of like something's going to go wrong and it's going to suck and something's going to go wrong and it could have been this. Or
and the whole year, I had this one customer was like, you're an Eagles fan, something's going to go wrong. And I'm like, no, this is the year. I haven't seen him since Wentz tore his ACL, and I'm just like, fuck you. Like, and he's like that downer Eagles fan too. I'm just like, stop being so pessimistic about this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can watch. So then, I guess the front side lip slide on tap might be all the more thing that you want if you want to go watch that at Pizza Boy. You also just for my free will update. So if anybody's looking is kind of in the Percy area, looking to go out tonight, it's they've got beer and their wagon, their food wagon this week is the Meat Wagon Barbecue. I mean, how can you beat something called Meat Wagon Barbecue? That'll be out there. And for the Eagles game, they're going to have obviously beer, and Trey locally sourced is going to get provided the food. They will have the Eagles game on the big screen there too as well for those who want to watch it. And then on Sunday they'll have inside the brew house. You have Down Earth Cafe, which will be bringing their culinary wares to the table alongside some beer. So it's good stuff. So anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, that's it. I'm pretty much good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I said, I was looking over space news stuff this week, and nothing just kind of really grabbed me.
There's frozen ice on Mars underneath the surface.
Yep, there's that. There's some interesting stuff. I was actually doing I was actually reading a lot of stuff around some of the kind of space industries things this week. And it was just kind of a little too in the weeds for the last call today. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to leave it off. Just kind of interesting things happening in the space industry, and I've been following some of these organizations, some of these businesses, I should say, corporations that are looking to kind of profitize in space, and so. But we'll leave that for another time. So, yeah, I guess that does it. Our first 2018 podcast. Very excited about this. I'm actually feeling somewhat optimistic moving forward in 2018, I've got to say. I don't feel the same kind of horror that I felt as we started 2017. I'm so happy that so many people have stayed with the organizing, and it's given me a lot of hope. And, I got to say a huge shout out once again to everyone who's become a member of Raging Chicken Press this past year. It's been pretty amazing. I mean, we're at the point right now where we're actually approaching our next membership goal, which to be doing it this quickly, I did not really expect. I mean, right now we have 16 Patreons on our Patreon site, right, and our goal is to get to $350 per month, and we're at $237 already. That's amazing. So, I mean, thank you, everybody, for stepping up to the plate and really getting behind supporting our infrastructure. I mean, it's going to be more and more important as we go forward. Some things to look forward to in the coming weeks. One, so I'll be back in touch with a friend of mine, Colleen, not the Colleen we've been talking about here with the Me Too stuff, but a friend, Colleen, who has just recently started her own catering company. And hopefully she's still going to have some time to be actually to come on to do a new segment for Out the Coop. We're playing around with the term Out the Coop Free Range to talk about some stuff in rural Pennsylvania about food policy and stuff in the state and nation. So we'll be looking forward to that. As I said earlier in the show, Rick Smith and I have been working together over this break. I was just out to his international headquarters out there in the center of the state, and kind of working on some stuff with him. And I think that we're going to do some more collaborative things here coming in the new year. Hopefully some collaborative festive stuff. Like, for example, we're toying around with the idea of putting together a joint party, right? Like in the Kutztown area or something like this, just having people out and kind of getting together to talk about progressive politics and progressive media moving forward. So look forward to that. So do check him out too as well. So, last word, Sean?
Nope.
All right. So, everybody, hey, remember, it's patreon.com, rcpress, /rcpress. I'll become a member.
I say we get enough members, it can give me a part-time job.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, that would be the ideal. That would be ideal. We get a few more people in. I'm telling you, we get a few more members in. We're going to be on some really solid footing. So, man, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I don't want to get out ahead of myself. You know, I'm always the one that says it's always going to depend on the labor. It's always going to depend on what we actually have. But I am holding myself back from getting excited about really being able to launch something extraordinary here, kind of in 2018 in terms of progressive media. Assuming that we get people that want us to come aboard and support progressive media, become members of Raging Chicken Press. We can do some really cool stuff. So with that, we're going to close it out here today. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, here with Sean Kishin. Once again, Sean, good to see you in 2018, man.
Nice seeing you, and let's do it.
You got it. Here we go. This is Raging Chicken Press, Out to Coop podcast. We will see you next week. I promise I won't leave you hanging next week, folks. And until then, keep the organizing efforts going, folks. See ya!